Hello everyone, so today we're going to get the engine mounted onto the Speedtech Performance chassis, as well as get the intake manifold installed. It'll be a 2-for-1 video, just because both of those things don't really take a whole lot of time, so just combine them. So just have to put the actual polyurethane mounts onto the engine block itself, drop it down, and then it's just 2 bolts that slide in on there, and I'll get a better view of that in a second. So we'll do that, and then we have the intake manifold, the Holley Sniper Fabricated intake manifold. It's the 102 millimeter low profile one. So we'll install that. I already got all the other bits and pieces like the fuel injectors and stuff like that, fuel lines for that already installed. So just going to be mounting the intake manifold on there at this time. And then the main thing is that for the manifold, we're going to torque it first to 44 inch-pounds and then to 89 inch-pounds in like a little cross star pattern, which I'll show you guys in a second. Alright, so let's start doing this engine mount. So I already got the other side finished and ready to go, so I'll just do this side and then show you guys mounting it up. It's really simple. So this is actually the plate that goes onto the actual engine. It's a Speedtech one. They actually did a really good job, very sturdy, strong. It's all powder coated and everything like that. So these are actually 2 bolts that are already mounted in there, or that I mounted in there before. It uses the 7/32 size, and you just screw them in there, make sure that they're all the way in there nice and tight. And then you have this other piece right here, which looks like the exact same one, but it's a slightly bigger hole. And it's actually for a 6 millimeter Allen. So these are going to go in here like this, and you're going to go mount this right up on this side right here. So you want to do this as the first step, because once you mount this right here, you have the actual polyurethane mount that goes across this area, and you won't be able to get to that. So go ahead and do this one. Alright, just get that snug. Alright, and then we have these other ones right here that are going to use the bigger socket, and this is actually the 5/16. And so these are going to go in the other 3 holes right here. And you just want to snug these ones up for right now, because you still need to do the top mount first. But these are just to make sure that these are all lined up before you torque that one down nice and tight. Okay, so we'll go back. Oh, wrong one. Make sure that's nice and tight. There we go. Alright, so now we have this one, which is the actual mount that's going to attach to the actual arms on the chassis. And you guys can see, it's pretty nice, pretty simple, really good construction. I like it. The welds on the brackets and everything like that look really good, so no issues with them. So yeah, you're just gonna feed that through, and then you're gonna tighten up this top one. Okay. And now you have the last 2 bolts, which are the ones that we had previously installed right here. And these just have a little nut with a collar on it, with grooves on it, so it's sort of like a lock nut, but it's not your spring nut style. So you're just going to thread those on. Like that, and then we'll get our ratchet, and these are a 14 millimeter. Okay, and then we'll go and lock these down. Alright, so now that that's all secure, nice and tight, other side's already done. So what we're going to do is that we're going to lower this down nice and slowly so it doesn't pinch anything. For me, it's a very close fit with the actual steering linkage down here. So I actually had to move the engine mount as far back. It's got two positions. So I moved it all the way back. So I'll mount it right here, and I'll get a different view for that. And yeah, it's just 2 bolts that just go right through. Okay, so now we're going to get ready to lower it down. So as you can see, we're just going to line these up with right here. They just go right over, and we have the bolt that goes right through. Alright, so those are all in, and now we just have to put the washer and the nylon lock nut on it, on each side. Alright, so now we're just going to ratchet these down. Okay, all good. So that's how you install the mount. So now that we have the engine mounted onto the chassis, we can go ahead and take this off, including the plate, so we can then mount the intake manifold. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and reinstall these bolts. Okay, so now that we got the engine mounted on there, as you guys can see, it's right here. Let's go ahead and install the intake manifold. So I'll tell you guys a little bit more about intake manifold. So I actually already had this on previously and put together, whatnot. So it's pretty nice. I like it. It's a good setup. Solid. The welds on and everything like that are actually done really well. Didn't have any issues with it at all. But zoomed in. There's the back side of it, as well as the inside. Alright, so as you guys can see, you have all your vacuum hoses right here, or the fittings for them. There we go. Kind of hard to see with all the black on there, the angles. Anyway, so you have all your vacuum lines on there. So just threaded those in. Got Permatex thread sealant with PTFE. So let's just make sure that it's got a good seal on there. Alright, and then I just used some high temp grease for these O-rings. So there's a whole bunch of O-rings on here on each intake manifold, or intake runner feed right there. And on this side, you have the front where the throttle is going to be at. And then here's the injector. So I actually already have the injectors in there. This is kind of a pain just because it was a really, really tight fit. Just trying to get them down in there. So you can see the injectors are all right here. And then you have the brackets, 3 of them, 1 on each side. And the length of the bracket versus the length for the injectors. It's a really, really tight fit. So that took a long time. I didn't want to have to take these back off and do a whole video on that. So I didn't, but it's all threaded in there, and you got the fuel line going all into that. So we'll go ahead and get this installed. So before I do that, show you guys, so we're going to be following this bolt pattern. So you're basically starting from the middle, going up and down, back and forth as you're going to the outside. Just make sure that they're all done. You want to do that for the first 44 inch-pounds, and then again for the 89 inch-pounds both times. Just make sure it's got a good seal on there. Alright, and then for the actual bolts, bolting them to it, Also use this anti-seize lubricant just to make sure that I can actually get them out in the future. They're not locked up. So go ahead and get those started. So all we're going to need is, you don't have to use a drill, but decided to use my drill for this just to make it a little bit quicker. Put it on the lowest setting. Just make sure you don't over torque those. And then a long extension, just because it's going to be a lot easier, because you guys will see in a second, you're going to have to basically go from the base right here all the way above where the actual intake manifold's at. So it's just easier if you have a nice extender on it. And the piece for this should be a 5mm Allen bit. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe that's what it is, 5mm Allen bit. And then obviously we're torquing this down, so I got an inch torque, or inch foot-pound torque. So just make sure that you have the appropriate one. So this is inch pounds, make sure it can go down to at least 40 and then up to like 100. Just make sure you're in the middle there. Alright, so let's just get started. So, alright, so I've already greased these up right here, so these are good to go. So I've already cleaned this off as well, so that's also good to go. So you're just gonna do this like that. Put it in line. So now you can see how it's gonna sit up on there. And this is the low profile one as well. Alright, so you don't have to, but it does help if your bit or the holder for your bit is magnetic. So it's basically going to be going straight out here. So it gets kind of annoying. So you don't really need one as long as the one I have. It makes it easier. But just like a couple inches will help quite a bit. Especially a magnetic one, because you can get lost down there. And these are your bolts, nothing too fancy. Alright, they do come with a lock washer on each one. So I'm just going to go ahead and just start the threads on all of them. I'm not going to get them tight or anything like that. Just going to get them in place. Alright, there we go. We got our torque wrench set to 44 inch pounds.